Welcome to this first MOOC series on rethinking the economy after the coronavirus. This series has been initiated during the first lockdown period at spring 2020 with the objective of understanding the socio-economic consequences of the COVID and the perspective for policymakers to reorientate our development model. It is based on an idea of the EPOG Plus program and a large partnership with more than 20 institutions worldwide, and jointly coordinated by Bruno de Conti from the University of Campinas, Brazil, and myself, David Flachet, from the University of Technology of Compiègne, France. The EPOG Plus program is a 2-year international master's program benefiting from the support of the European Union, and in particular from scholarship for students coming from all around the world. Already before the COVID pandemic, the program was tailored to addressing the challenges concerning our economies. Our economies were indeed still facing persistent financial fragilities, as well as growing income and wealth inequalities. They were also facing major ecological challenges to cope with climate change and biodiversity collapse. This is why the program trains experts and researchers able to deal with different aspects of the transitions we are currently facing. Each student specializes with a major: knowledge, innovation, and the digital transition, or macroeconomics, finance, and the socio-economic transition, or development, sustainable development, and the ecological transition. But this specialization does not mean remaining in a silo. The EPOG program aims to provide to each student an all-encompassing understanding of these dimensions and their interdependencies. The diagnoses of the question addressed to us with the program are reinforced as a consequence as the pandemic. The world is facing major challenges with the pandemic, a major economic downturn, and very important social consequences characterized in particular by rising inequalities between and within countries. In turn, this raises questions about debt, recovery challenges, globalization, or the need for an ecological reorientation of our economies. It calls for a clear understanding of the endogenous dimension of the current pandemic if we want to rethink our economic policies. As we will show, this pandemic is indeed rooted in our development model. In order to rethink our economic policies for global transition, we need to develop cooperation worldwide. This is why we have gathered prominent experts from world-class institutions, and in particular experts developing critical approaches in economics and beyond. We aim to offer the opportunity for people to understand the challenges and perspectives we are facing, and for teachers to provide introduction that can be used in their own courses. This is why the available videos are short and do not need prerequisite for most of them, thus targeting a large audience.
Taking benefit of this qualified network of scholars and students, this MOOC series contains several lectures with very diversified but totally complementary contents, coping with some of the aspects we collectively understood as vital aspects for the understanding of the current crisis, not only in its surface, but in its structural dimension. First of all, it's crucial to discuss the ecological roots of Coronacrisis. In a period where negationism of the ecological problems we are facing is a new fashion, it's imperative to consider that Coronacrisis is not an exogenous crisis, but it's rather an outcome of the capitalist mode of production in its neoliberal era. Hence, we have lectures discussing human-nature relations, the ecological sustainability as a requirement for the plant viability, and the pandemics as a crisis of the Anthropocene. Connected to that, we have lectures highlighting that Coronacrisis is a multidimensional crisis, because it is an ecological crisis, a sanitary crisis, an economic crisis, a social crisis, creating also a political crisis, and so on. If you do not understand it as a multidimensional crisis, all effort to combat it will be useless. Being a multidimensional crisis, it is having deep impacts on the world economy and society, allowing some scholars to claim that it will possibly provoke structural changes. The whole discussion about go back to normality or to a new normal involves this analysis. So we have lectures here raising some questions related to the possibility of important changes in the organization of the firms worldwide, consequently in the organization of the global value chains. More than that, will Coronacrisis generate the end of the neoliberal era of finance-led capitalism? Will it accelerate the decline of the US hegemony? These are very instigating questions that are also debated in this series. Finally, it's essential to discuss the economic policies that are being implemented worldwide to face the corona crisis. Interestingly, even now liberal institutions and scholars are arguing that in the face of the terrible effects of the crisis, all states should intervene and save the economies. So, we will discuss some theoretical aspects associated to these anti-cyclical policies and the problems faced by peripheral countries, historical experiences and learnings related to those policies. Then we have also very interesting regional studies of the policies implemented in India, Brazil, South Africa, and in the European Union with a focus in Italy. And to finalize, we have to come back to the first point. These policies have obviously to deal with the social urgencies. After all, there has been an explosion of families without income, in extreme poverty, dying of starvation. But at the same time, those policies have to consider the ecological aspects that I mentioned earlier. Otherwise, we will continue in a loop in which the solution for the current crisis will lead to other crises, creating serious threat for the preservation of human life. As you can see, it's a very dense and extremely instigating book series, and we hope you will enjoy it.